Good morning, everyone. Good morning from Stockholm, wherever you are. We welcome really for this important session. So it would be good, Martina, if you can put the first slide.
Yeah.
And give the full screen.
There you go.
Yeah. Thank you. The purpose of this important session is to bring together the international organization, government organization, as well as the humanitarian coordination role in terms of addressing the importance of early warning for all. Sorry, when we are in remote, this is a challenge. So thank you for that. So the purpose of this important session is as part of the Stockholm Water Week, we are organizing the purpose of early warning for all initiative, how it can save lives. And the experts who are here would position the expertise and their skills and their organization, how they were able to tackle issues of climate shocks like landslides, cyclones, floods, etc. You will hear from their experts, which will be moderated by Martina, CGR Climate Resilience Lead. So what we have planned is to provide a short intervention, and that would allow for participants to know what we are setting the context. And then we have Bob Stefanski from the World Meteorological Organization, who would highlight the early warning for initiative and how this will be critically relevant to help communities to save their lives, property, and also de-risking their risk when it comes to their assets and their livelihoods, right? So let me just share to the next slide. Can you move to the next slide? Yeah, next slide. So I just want to highlight, we always hear from WMO and others the record-breaking temperatures. And also UNDRR and many global organizations points out the increasing rise of disasters. And I think this is one particular data that will be very crucial, not only at the global scale, but also at the national level, to really look at how this natural disasters, when we mean these are water-related, flood, drought, cyclones, etc. And then looking at the statistics of last year, over 400 natural disasters have been reported with an economic loss of $280 billion. And when you talk about these numbers, and we are looking at resilient development, commitment to loss and damage of $100 billion, they don't go one in one. And we see that each investments in adaptation need to be in future resilient, and those infrastructure need to be much more collective action when we talk about building their resilience. And so this, can we move to the next slide? So here is one more summary. The disaster doesn't leave anyone. Across the planet, we see the disasters have been reported, whether it is hurricane or in the global south, when we look at a lot of issues around flash flood, rainfall from the extreme rainfall, what we call is riverine flooding, and also issues of drought, etc. So this really calls for the importance of why early warning is the need of the hour, and why the global initiatives of early warning would be fundamentally important to national institutions to adapt and invest in infrastructures like weather forecast and translate that into early action. So the part of our session is to enlighten all the participants here to show and demonstrate the capabilities that would come from the experts who are here, and as well as some of our own experience, how we are addressing. So let's move to the next slide. So one of the issues when you understand is that often we look into traditional responses because the climate were quite normal. And today, when we look at climate shocks, we know that how much with add-on to increasing temperature, you would bring more volume of rainfall that would translate into more flooding, and with a significant, impact on damages. What you need to have is a lead time. That's where a framework like anticipatory action would help critically ensuring those communities are well protected and safeguarded. And that is where In Sri Lanka specifically, we would like to highlight how this anticipatory action is a new topic in the region, but also it is growing very well among the policymakers and also the humanitarian organization. And some of the experts would highlight what's happening and what their capabilities would position case studies that would also help countries in the developing South would also look at how anticipatory action is an important tool. Next slide. So very briefly, we would like to introduce solutions we are bringing in to look at what we call is disaster risk governance through an initiative called Climate Resilience, developing a platform called AWARE, which is basically a narrative of bringing the interconnectedness of early warning, early action, and finance. Because often when you bring of disaster topic, you will bring institutions from meteorological institution to humanitarian organization, and a range of non-government organizations are equally involved in the bottom-up institution. So what we are trying to put together these three connecting dots of early warning with the capable forecast data from WMO and the reputed institutions like NOAA, ECMWF, all they provide a credible information, but it may not be a local context. But what is more important is to tailor those information with the national met agencies and work with the hydrological center to provide information on the severity of the flooding. That's where we work with a lot of institutions in the region, and it provides a near real time with the technology which is fast emerging, clouds and others. We could reach out to those n number of partners and institutions collectively, and the plans that the humanitarian organization put together can be mainstreamed into this system. We believe it can reach a multi-sector as well, not just only the disaster here, but also focusing on water sector, nutrition, wash, agriculture, all has to play an equal role when we safeguarding vulnerable communities. And it brings over years inclusive governance, because inclusive governance doesn't happen overnight. We need to define their roles and responsibility. That's where this platform would position more on that. Next slide. So these are some snapshot of how the tool can offer information. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, which the panelists would highlight how such knowledge products are critically important. Next slide. We have this early action. This is basically a human-centric approach where we design the information captured through the humanitarian organization like World Vision, FAO, Red Cross Society. They all work at the community level to respond to the needs of the communities, readiness and the active phase. So once these plans are available, then you would be able to provision a pre-financing arrangement. Can we go to the next slide? So wherein you would budgetary these requirement well in advance before the disaster strike, and we conduct a lot of simulation to ensure that the institutions understand the nature of anticipatory action in a more broader way. Can we go to the next slide? So, and then we look at some of these example, what we call is early warning for all. We work with World Vision and Red Cross Society, where we conducted this drill. Next slide. Some of these pictures are useful to translate in a short video. Can we go to the next slide? Can you able to play around this video now? Yeah.
Tea, a vital Sri Lankan export, is often associated with picturesque hill country landscapes. However, climate change threatens this idyllic setting with frequent floods. Heavier and more unpredictable rainfall is causing a greater incidence of landslides, which endanger lives and damage communities. To enhance disaster preparedness, the CGIAR Initiative on Climate Resilience, called CLIMBER, along with partners from World Vision Lanka, conducted anticipatory action drills.
What we are trying to do is, as part of the CGIAR Climate Resilience Initiative, the AWARE platform, which is in brief, early warning, early action and early financing, the interconnectedness of the disaster mitigation response. Using this incredible satellite data and the ground-based data provided by the technical agencies in the climber countries, we are developing a trigger mechanism based on historical data in reference to the current month, how the deficit or excess rainfall will have impeding impact on floods and drought or landslide.
This initiative, including the innovative AWARE platform, aims to strengthen disaster response and promote resilience in vulnerable communities, especially in the hill country. The drills simulated early warning triggers, community preparedness, and evacuation procedures, emphasizing the importance of proactive measures. Such efforts not only save lives but empower communities to face climate challenges with resilience.
Thank you, Martina. So with that, I would like to, share your questions if you have anything for me. At this point, I would now welcome Bob from the WMO to provide his insights on the early warning for all and how this early warning for all initiative is crucial to safeguard communities going forward. Over to you, Bob.
Thank you, Garash, and welcome everybody online and in person. My name is Bob Stefanski. I work for the World Meteorological Organization in Geneva, Switzerland. And just to note, WMO is a specialized agency, but we represent, most importantly, all the weather and hydrological services of the world. So just quickly, as a complement to what Garash just showed, as you realize, I think in 2023, the second UN Secretary General Gutierrez launched this Early Warnings for All initiative. And what we do is that, I think, again, as Garash's video and statement showed, this is where we need partnerships at a national level and even at an international level. As Garash was pointing out, so we have everything's interconnected. There are 4 pillars of the Early Warning for All initiative. And the first one is disaster risk knowledge. And this is increasing the understanding of the predictability, the occurrence and the impacts of the various hazards, as he saw, as Garash showed. This is led by the UN Disaster Risk Reduction Agency. And I'll go through the pillars and you can see how this is then fit in at a national level. The second pillar is detection, observation, and the analysis and forecasting of hazards. And this is led by WMO and all its partners at the country level. Again, as Garash mentioned, it's the forecasting of the different hazards. Pillar 3 is one of the most important ones, is the warning, dissemination, and communication. Again, engaging all the stakeholders and knowing what the warnings are and getting them to the right people. This is led by the International Telecommunications Union, among others. And lastly, preparedness and response capabilities is the 4th pillar, led by the International Federation of Red Cross. So if you take this at a national level, you need the Disaster Management Agency, maybe along with the weather services, of understanding the risk of all these disasters. So what has happened in the past? And so we try to collect impacts from tropical cyclones, from floods, from droughts, and other things that happen in the country, develop a database. And so you need this history, if you will, of what has happened. And then you need to have the forecast and observations. So is there a forecast of a tropical cyclone, for example? Where is it going and what are the potential impacts? Again, this is also using the historical impacts that can help decide the intensity of the current forecast storm. Then, again, at a national level, you need warning and dissemination, warning and communication. So again, even if we have a perfect forecast, even if we have a perfect history of all the different events, if we cannot communicate this efficiently, it will not work. So again, this pillar 3 on warning dissemination is very crucial. And then also, again, all 3 are very important, the preparedness and response capabilities. Again, so even if there's a warning of a tropical cyclone, what is the plan? Should people go to a certain shelter? Should they go to a certain part of the country? They shouldn't go to the sea. They should go to some higher terrain. So this is just a quick overview. Again, what we're trying to do, we're working on this internationally, but the focus is really at a national level where you need these 4 pillars of the history of the risk, the forecast of the hazard, how do we communicate that hazard, and then and develop and enact a preparedness plan. So with that, Garash and colleagues, I want to leave it there. So that's a quick overview of the initiative. Again, it's focused really at a national level. There is already a lot of work done. Many of these pillars are done in some countries. Our goal now is to make sure that every country can try to do this on these 4 pillars at a national level for the various hazards. Well, thank you and enjoy the World Water Week, and hope to see you in person soon.
Thank you, Bob, for this important, reflections from WMO when it comes to early warning for all. And we could put some website link, if it is possible, Bob, in the chat about the early warning so that our colleagues in the online can take a look. And this brings me to moderation led by Martina, who is quite clear on her framework of how to run the show. So over to Martina, and welcome everyone. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Garaj, and thank you, Bob, for setting the context of this. So our panel session is going to be roughly 36 minutes with 2 rounds of questions for our 4 panelists, all of who have been and continue to be collaborators in and a part of the implementation of AWARE. So the focus of this session will be on the critical role of early warning systems in empowering communities and helping humanitarian agencies to take proactive steps to protect those communities from natural disasters, with a focus on anticipatory action impact in Sri Lanka. So with that being said, I'm going to pose the first question to Ms. Ganga Karyawasa, who joins us from the Sri Lanka Red Cross Society. Thank you for being with us here today, Ms. Ganga. So the first question for you would be, in the context of anticipatory action and AWARE, what are some of the key challenges that your organization especially faces in implementing early response and coordination? And how does utilizing early warning systems help address these challenges in Sri Lanka? Over to you.
Thank you. Actually, thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you as representing Sri Lanka Red Cross Society. So as an organization working auxiliary to the government in the disaster preparedness and response, so we face a lot of challenges in early response and coordination in Sri Lanka at present. One of the main challenges is that coordination among the stakeholders, that because this effective disaster response require the coordination between multiple agencies, so that that is between government bodies, NGOs, and local communities. So that is one of the challenge that we have some kind of coordination, but still we need more improvements. Also, this public awareness and preparedness on disasters. So government and the people, the humanitarian agencies work on that, but still we need to improve that, because we have challenges in preparedness and public awareness on the disasters. And also this data accuracy and availability of the data for decision making, because timely and accurate data is crucial for early responses. So however, this data collection and sharing mechanisms so still not fully developed. So we have some gaps, and so which leads delays in actions, especially when it comes to anticipate decision making in anticipating development and taking decisions in anticipatory action. So with these challenges, so how these early warning systems can address these challenges? If you think of how we can do it, so it's one is we have to enhance the coordination, and other one is that we have limited resources, mainly regarding the financial resources, and also the capacities of both the stakeholders and the communities. So so we need to think of resource allocation and enhance coordination to improve capacities of the stakeholders and the community. So that's how we can overcome these challenges. And also we need prepare for timely information dissemination, and this decision making with sound data. So we need to improve these systems, early warning systems, to overcome these challenges. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ganga. Thank you for staying on time. And now over to Mr. June Kuruvitarachi from World Vision Sri Lanka. Mr. Kuruvitarachi, how has the transition from early warning to early action aware innovation specifically helped your organization to proactively prepare early action plans, especially among those vulnerable communities with whom you work across Sri Lanka? Would you be able to provide some examples of this impact? Over to you.
Yes.
Mr. Kuruvitarachi, can you hear me?
You're muted.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Let me just tell that World Vision is activating or the implementing this program across 27 divisions in Sri Lanka. So we are as well, one of the core pillars of World Vision is to disaster response. So we are very much involved in disaster management in community. So we were privileged to work with IMI, especially with this Aware platform. We were introduced to Aware platform by IMI when we did an anticipatory action program in Nuwara. So yeah, even though there are certain challenges in terms of early warnings, yes, we have certain amount of early warning capacity in Sri Lanka. But provided that you have early warning, so what action that you should do? So that is the next challenge. So if we have in anticipatory action, if we have early warnings, so then you have to have early actions. So that was a challenge. So, and the next challenge is early financing. So I would like to see this Aware platform as collaborating, as an enabling platform, where all the organizations who work in a particular area could be benefited for better collaborations and appeal for finance, because this early Aware platform provides you good early warning. Okay, as I understand, it is benefited more than the technical capacity of Sri Lanka. So when you have a better early warning, and if you have the protocols, the early action protocols for anticipatory action in a platform where all stakeholders, relevant stakeholders have access, then you can better collaborate your early action plans with all the other agencies where in an area where you work. As well as if you know what is the financial requirement for this particular early action plan, that is also you have the access, you have the knowledge in the Aware platform. So that is where I find this Aware is very important. If I relate to the concrete example, is as I mentioned it earlier, that we did a anticipatory action program in Nuwara last year, where IMI also became a partner. So with that, unfortunately we could not activate the activation plan because the disaster didn't happen, but we could simulate. So with the simulation, we could understand that if you have an anticipatory action plan for a particular area, and anticipatory actions could benefit could bring a lot of benefits to the community, mitigating a disaster. I mean, because there are early action that, and we could see that the community was very actively implementing those early actions in our simulations. So that was a great benefit. And also, thanks to me, we could renovate a canal that is also kind of early actions in anticipating a disaster to mitigate the flood. So that is the concrete evidence that I can bring out in terms of World Vision's engagement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chief, for those examples, especially the one of the canal, and also how the knowledge has really helped in terms of implementation when it comes to anticipatory action. Now we move to Mr. Vincent Yanadeepan from FAO. From a food security perspective, how would you say that AWARE's localized warnings about droughts and other climate threats have influenced your interventions and strategies to safeguard agricultural livelihoods in Sri Lanka? Over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Martina, and thanks, Timmy, for inviting FAO for this discussion. So, as you all know, the food security usually has us based on the availability, accessibility, utilization, and the stability. So, the AWARE, as Bob mentioned, AWARE can be a solution for all those four factors: that disaster risk knowledge, preparedness and response capabilities, monitoring, analysis and forecasting of hazards, and warning dissemination and communication. So, for example, the disaster risk knowledge. So, AWARE is enables to collect the users to collect the data and analysis systematically, and also to develop kind of thresholds, triggers and thresholds. And also it will also enable the users to enhance their preparedness and response capabilities based on the impact-based assessment or impact-based studies, um, uh, 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 probably based on the likelihood of occurrence, potential impacts and capacities and everything. And also the analysis and forecasting of hazards in terms of slow onset hazards like droughts. It will enable to analyze the vegetation index, soil moisture, and also precipitation index, and enable to develop kind of combined drought index like the as triggers. So, and also main thing is it will enable to kind of develop a localized triggers for the specific areas, localized triggers, because that is lacking at the most instance, because in Sri Lanka at the moment, most of the triggers, the triggers for landslides are kind of only the national level. So, and also the early warning dissemination. So the it's kind of who will communicate, what to communicate, and also how to communicate, when and where. So this kind of analysis can be done with AWARE, but what is required is a kind of collaboration partnerships, because this AWARE cannot be maintained or operated by few agencies. So it should have the government involvement, humanitarian partners involvement, and the research agencies like he should get engaged. So that is very much important. So considering all these factors, the Sri Lanka Anticipatory Action Technical Working Group in Sri Lanka. So in order to address this kind of challenges and also improve these early warning, forecasting, and trigger development, the technical working group itself has a subgroup called early warning and trigger development. So that group will work with the government and other partners to develop these harmonized triggers, because at some point we can see some some areas and some countries, for certain area there are several triggers and thresholds are developed, so that might get confused even the government as well as the community. So what we are trying to do in Sri Lanka is, as a practitioners of anticipatory action, to develop harmonized triggers and work with all the agencies engaged in those areas in the various sector, maybe agriculture, or the other relief sectors. So all these agencies can work together and develop a joint initiatives. So I think that AWARE can facilitate that coordination and that facilitation. Yeah, that's, I believe, that AWARE's role in ensuring the food security in Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Nyanadeepan. Now we move over to Ms. Madhavi Malal-Godaria-Bandhu from the Druyog Nivaran South Asia Network. Ms. Arya-Bandhu, could you speak to some of the key challenges that you foresee in ensuring inclusivity and anticipatory action? And how can early warning systems play a role in empowering communities in this context? Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity to join this discussion and share some thoughts about the issue of inclusion. So first, I would like to clarify who are the groups we refer to when we speak about inclusion. It is children, older people, people with disabilities, migrants, gender and sexual minorities, ethnic and religious minorities, people belonging to lower castes or indigenous people, and women in all these groups mentioned. This list, of course, is not exhaustive. Marginalized groups can vary depending on the location, on the context, but in general, these are the groups. So in taking anticipatory action, in planning anticipatory action initiatives, unless we have information on socially and economically marginalized groups, unless this information has already been collected and analyzed, the interventions will not target these groups, or it will not be possible to reach out to all these groups. Very commonly, a vulnerability analysis is conducted, but vulnerability analysis not necessarily will identify the specific groups who are vulnerable in different ways. So, as the speaker from the World Meteorological Organization mentioned, forecasting with best technology is of little use unless it is communicated and the response mechanisms are clear to the community members. So, coming to anticipatory action, it is time and location specific. Therefore, in preparing anticipatory action frameworks and action plans, we require a social analysis to identify the most marginalized groups and what are the factors of marginalization in a particular location, why they are vulnerable. We also note anticipatory action has a short time window, particularly when it comes to sudden onset disasters. And the regular practice, or what we say business as usual, way of working does not really consider issues of marginalization and strategies for how to include these specifically marginalized groups in an adequate manner. So value of social analysis in early warning systems is that it helps better targeting, better messaging with appropriate messages, because not all groups are able to access the messages and prepare response mechanism because of the limitations they have due to their marginalization. And appropriate communication methods, therefore, are required to reach these specific marginalized groups. So social inclusion can engage the vulnerable groups. Once we identify who the vulnerable groups in a particular location are, the social inclusion approach can engage these groups in the planning processes, giving them knowledge and awareness on hazards and how to respond to warning messages, how to understand warning messages. This can actually inform them and empower them in continuing to living in risk-prone situations. And I would also say it is very important, and I underline this importance, that the AWARE platform has taken steps to incorporate gender equality and social inclusion as an integral aspects of anticipatory action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Arya-Bandhu. Now we're going to move over to round two. So we'll start with Mr. Nyanadeepan from FAO. Looking ahead, given that anticipatory action is a relatively new concept in Sri Lanka, how is FAO planning to strengthen the collaboration between humanitarian organizations, government agencies, and technology partners to build a more disaster resilient Sri Lanka? Over to you, Mr. Nyanadeepan.
Yes, so first of all, in Sri Lanka, we have kind of two kind of anticipatory action approaches. So one is usually based on the expert opinions. For example, if kind of we have two monsoon seasons, southwest and northeast. So before these monsoon seasons, if my department forecast kind of the rainfall is above normal, and based on that, disaster management center used to identify the most vulnerable hotspots, which will be affected by these monsoon, maybe through the floods or landslides. So based on those findings, sometimes humanitarian partners, they used to develop the alert and obtain funds from some pool funds that are globally available. So that's one approach. The second approach is that we are talking about here is which comes with these three pillars: early warning, early action, early finance. Early warnings comes with predefined triggers and thresholds, and which is linked to the early action protocols and to the finance. So and in FAO, so FAO will be targeting the agriculture, especially the paddy, livestock, and inland fishery for next 2 years in developing the anticipatory action protocols for flood and drought hazards. So let me help me tell how FAO is expecting to collaborate with the partners, including the government. So at few stages in the anticipatory action protocol development. So from hazard identification to the anticipatory action protocol validation. So which includes triggers and threshold development, because triggers and thresholds cannot be developed by the organizations itself. So this has to be developed with the government. At the moment, I think in Sri Lanka, except the protocol developed by Sri Lanka Red Cross Society and other triggers and threshold needs the validation of the government. So so considering those from start itself, we are expecting to engage the government in the development of the triggers and threshold, and developing the anticipatory action protocol through the participatory action approaches with the government as well as the community, and and in order to validate those protocols, we will be doing kind of simulation. So, and second part is the anticipatory action operationalization. So that for slow onset hazards, yes, it's easy. We have enough lead time, but for the fast rapid onset these hazards, we will have only a small lead time. So we need to have proper planning for that, especially in validating the impact areas, and also the identifying the beneficiaries, and also the actions itself, because the actions, the anticipatory action, I mean, one action not fit to all. So we might need to have specific actions for the specific target groups, and also the coordination with the government. And the um, and the third part is the institutionalization. The we need to maintain the coordination with the government. So that's why we have these established this anticipatory action technical working group. So that is working with the government and establishing the link, and also that the second point is that testing and generating the evidence, because at the moment most of the project the anticipatory action protocols are available as a pilot. Those are not activated. So when we activate only, we will see how those are work at the ground level, and also those evidences must need to advocate the government, he needs to utilize anticipatory action. And also how the third point is mainstreaming anticipatory action into the disaster management systems. So at the moment there are provisions in the National Disaster Management Act policy as well as in the plan. So that will enable us to start from what is available rather than creating the new policies or new acts. So we can start from what is available. And the, the final thing is the financing, because the most financing, I mean, most of you know, in the anticipatory action, we have two kind of financing. One is build, other one is fuel. The most financing available in Sri Lanka is for build. The, so, I mean, we can have the financing for the build anticipatory action systems, but where are we going to tap the finance for the activation? So that has to be planned properly and linked. This anticipatory action protocol should be linked with those early financing sources. At the moment, there are no government financing available for early financing in Sri Lanka, but I hope these evidences will help to advocate the government to also have some provisions to allocate some early finance for the potential anticipatory action protocol activations. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Nyanadithan. I know that you have to leave us as of now, so thank you for your time today. And with that, I'm going to move over to Ms. Arya Bandhu again to talk to us more about the gender and social inclusion aspect. So, Ms. Arya Bandhu, as you've also heard from the other panelists and the speakers regarding the importance of early warning, and as you spoke to key challenges earlier yourself, what do you see is the role of a gender equality and social inclusion strategy in anticipatory action, and specifically in ensuring that pre-financing is available before a disaster strikes? Over to you, Ms. Arya Bandhu.
Thank you. It's a very pertinent question. Let me start by saying that, as I already mentioned, gender equality and social inclusion require specific resources and actions, both from planning and executing perspectives when it comes to anticipatory action. First, we need to identify the vulnerable groups, which means we need to collect data and analyze from social perspectives, analyze vulnerability from social perspectives. And we need to keep in mind that the communities who are at risk or vulnerable in a particular location to a particular hazard is a very broad group. Their engagement in early warning systems and reaching out to them with appropriate messages, the way they can understand and respond, they require different strategies. And if we just look at, let me take the example of the role women play, for instance, in disaster preparedness and response, both at the family and community level. Women's experience and perspectives are different because their role in disaster preparedness and response is different. The women's role, men's role, they are gender-based, socially assigned roles. So these specific roles need to be included need to be taken into account in the anticipatory action planning and in communicating early warning and the overall execution. So vulnerability assessment, therefore, need to capture these aspects. And so I took the example of women, but different vulnerable groups like children, elderly, disabled, women in different stages of life, like adolescent girls, young women, pregnant mothers, elderly women, their needs and concerns in a response situation also differ vastly. Therefore, from a resource perspective, these will require appropriate interventions and meet their needs and the resources required for that. So the expertise to address social inclusion issues, therefore, is key. And conducting social analysis, not only vulnerability analysis, need to be inbuilt into the anticipatory action mechanisms from the from the initial stages. So here I also reiterate what Ms. Ganga Karyavasam mentioned in her remarks, that on the essential need for community and stakeholder capacity. We cannot assume that community has the capacity to absorb and understand the warning response messages, react in the anticipatory action execution activities. So we need resources, pre-planned resources to build the community of the stakeholder organizations at the national and local, both at the national and local level, the community organizations and communities themselves. They need to have the capacity to effectively participate and benefit from the anticipatory actions, because that is the only way to build their capacity and resilience for future incidents. So the pre-financing need to account for the required finances for above the mentioned aspects. If I am to repeat, social and vulnerability analysis, related data collection, technical skills and capacities, and resources required for engaging these different groups, consulting them, and executing anticipatory action in a way to strengthen their capacities and resilience. Over.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Ms. Aryabandu. I think it's really important to think through all those pieces, as especially when thinking of pre-financing from the perspective of anticipatory action. So thank you for your insights. Now we move to Mr. Kuruvitarachi from World Vision. Mr. Kuruvitarachi, could you talk to us a little bit about how we can ensure that marginalized and hard to reach communities in Sri Lanka are not left behind in terms of both accessing and benefiting from early warning systems? This is something that Ms. Aryabandu just spoke to as well. So could you tell us a little bit about this and what strategies have been successful in promoting it? Over to you.
Thank you. Let me tell, over the 70 plus years of World Vision history, we have been more responsive to disasters. So now what we have moved from being responsive to proactive, which we have to work with early warnings. That is why we continue and we look for engagement with technical agencies like IMI and other technical agencies. So we need early warning for early actions. So with that, so our approach to ensure that everybody get the early warning, the benefits of the early warning, is, as I mentioned earlier, we are working almost all over Sri Lanka. I mean, the Red Cross is the #1 and we are almost #2. And we work with almost every community in Sri Lanka. Excuse me. So we have understood that there are a lot of challenges faced by the marginalized communities in accessing the early warning in mainstream early warning. So who are these vulnerable people? Yeah, the common vulnerable people are, we know, the people with disabilities, people with poor, and we, since an organization who works with children, the children are the priority for World Vision. So we have understood children are also one of the most vulnerable group in a disaster. So that is why we are focusing on CCDR, child-centered disaster management programs. So that is one approach that we are planning, and we are implementing CCDR program to ensure that children are empowered in their knowledge and they are capacitated in disaster management. Second one is that we mainstream JESI, whether it's a development program or whether it's a disaster management program or even a response. We mainstream JESI. So that is also to ensure that the most vulnerable and people, the marginalized people, have the access or get benefit from the early warning. Another problem is that we understand the education level. I think the previous speaker also mentioned that though the technical people think that these early warning could be easily understood by people don't understand sometimes these early warnings. So since We are working with the communities for longer periods. For example, World Visions have programs. When we step in, we will stay at least about 15 years in a particular community. So we know the community better. So we use that advantage to simplify the early warnings issued by the technical agents. So because we have, apart from disaster management or the community level disaster management group, we have a lot of other subgroups within the community who works with the World Vision, mainly for development programs. So we use those community level subgroups in the community to disseminate the early warnings. And other benefit that World Vision has is the children camp. So in every area we work, we have a lot of children camp. We have formed children camps, and these children are very active. So we bring disaster management aspects also into this children camp. So that is where we can disseminate the early warning in terms of disaster to the children. And I hope that since we have just started moving to proactive actions, so we will continue to work with the technical agencies, and so we are the part of the technical working group and we're part of the core team. So we are hoping to find out more strategies where we can ensure that the early warnings will reach to the most vulnerable people. So we've been advocating to disaster management center and other relevant authorities in Sri Lanka. So that is one other approach is advocating. So advocacy also, we have DM advocacy forums also within our area program. So we use that also. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And now we move on to our final question, over to Ms. Ganga Kariawasan from the Red Cross Society. In your experience, given all the different challenges that we've talked about, and also we've talked about what does work, what doesn't, how has the integration of local knowledge into early warning systems such as AWARE helped enhance community preparedness and resilience to disasters in Sri Lanka? Over to you, Ms. Kariawasan.
Yeah, actually, whatever the things that we plan or implement, it's to the community. So ultimate benefits should go to the community. So in that case, integrating local knowledge into early warning systems like AWARE platform can significantly enhance the community preparedness and resilience to disasters. So because it's their end of the day, it's their safety and security. So if I highlight our experience and how we can use this knowledge in several ways, like historical insights. The local communities often have the historical knowledge in past disasters, including how they were mitigated or survived, which is not recorded maybe in our system. So this knowledge can be used to inform current strategies, ensuring that lessons from the past are incorporated into future plans. So another one is that it improves the communication, especially the communication channels. Local languages are often more trusted and understood by the community members. So integrating local knowledge ensures that warnings are communicated in a way that it is clear and culturally appropriate, leading to fast and more effective responses. Also that when we integrate the local knowledge, it provides insight into specific environmental, cultural, and social factors. Because it gives the contextual relevance that might not be, which is not captured by other warning systems. For example, communities might have traditional ways of interpreting natural signs or understanding the behaviors of local ecosystems, which can offer early indicators of potential disasters into our systems. So it is very important to understand this contextual relevance. Also, this local knowledge allows for the customization of responses to specific areas. So we can go for tailored responses. Integrating this localized understanding will ensure that warnings and preparedness measures are tailored to the actual risk faced by the community. With all these things, it enhances the trust and participation of the community, because we go for capacity building, we go for engagement and empowerment. But then with incorporating this local knowledge, will enhance the trust between the between the stakeholders and the communities. When communities see that their knowledge is valued and integrated into the official systems, they are more likely to trust the warnings and to participate in preparedness activities. So this trust is crucial for the successful implementation of evacuation plans, resource allocation, and so on. So end of the day, there's all these will build resilience of the communities, that they are actively involved in the development and implementation of the early warning system, and they are more resilient. So they are not just passive recipients of information, but active participants of the disaster risk reduction since inception to the implementation. So this empowerment leads to more sustainable disaster preparedness practice. So in that case, so there is we have diverse communities. We have communities with unique experiences and insights related to natural disasters, and then integration this their insights and their experiences and local knowledge into these systems, especially like this aware platform, is essential for creating a more resilient society. So end of the day, we will go with the communities and to build their resilience and then save their lives and the livelihoods. So it will improve the overall the strategy of the country. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Ganga, for your perspectives. And at this time, given that we are just a minute away from closing the session, I'd like to thank all the speakers and panelists for your time today and for sharing all your perspectives in terms of how important inclusion is, how important collaboration at multiple levels is, and more importantly, how important it is to both educate and work with local communities to ensure that innovations such as AWARE, which help us make that move from reactive to proactive and save lives and livelihoods, is really vital. So I thank you all for your time today, and we will be in touch. Thank you all, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.